You've all been here a while tonight, and you've all been wonderful, and the energy in this room, I have to say, I have found this a very moving event, particularly because of the way in which it was opened by Geraldine, went right to our hearts, right to our souls, right to our spirits, so we can ground ourselves in what this is all about. And it's about a whole lot more than politics. It's also about heart, soul, and love. And I'm also very moved that Ilana's here tonight. Paul mentioned that he'd just flown for 24 hours coming back. He came back from his father's funeral and sitting Shiva for a week. And how extraordinary that he would come straight to a nomination meeting and be here. And we know that with the loyalty and the friends and the love and the networks and the movement that exists in Nanaimo-Ladysmith, so many of you have worked with Paul on different campaigns and different issues. Seeing him work to protect our water, seeing him work to stop the trade deals. Paul knows this, I first became a big fan of Paul Manley. I thought, whoa, who's that filmmaker who's pulling down the mask of the fake protester who's really a cop? It was Paul. I worked for a long time with Maud Barlow and Council Canadians, and it was so cool to know that the Security and Prosperity Partnership could be literally unmasked by a filmmaker who knew enough to keep filming to make sure we got the bottom of the boots. And that was for those of you who don't remember the story, it was the bottom of the boots that revealed that they were actually only issued to members of the Sûreté Québec. People protesting the Sûreté Québec did not have access to said boots. But anyway, another whole story. Paul's worked with a lot of you on a lot of issues. He's rooted in this community. Nanaimo-Ladysmith has never before had a member of parliament because the boundaries are different. This place is a little bit different. It's a different name of a riding. But one thing I discovered in 2011 when I took a seat in the House of Commons. I tell you, I love Parliament. I love being a parliamentarian. I love the fact of democracy actually working. Because I can tell you, when I was running for Parliament in 2011 in Saanich Gulf Islands, not far from here, I think you'll probably hear a lot of the same things over this campaign, Paul, and the team that's going to work to get him elected. You're going to hear people say, don't waste your vote. Any other vote is a wasted vote. You want to vote for what you want, what you believe in, what's going to make a difference. But I was told, actually, right before the election, and I'll try not to talk too long because everybody's been here a while, but right before, like a week before the election, I was interviewed by CKNW in Vancouver, which is, big station. And I thought it was pretty clear from the reaction we were getting on the ground in Saanich Gulf Islands that even though I was running against a conservative cabinet minister, Gary Lunn, it looked, I thought it should be obvious to media that I had a fair chance at this point. And so less than a week before the vote, the interviewer said to me, well, with all due respect, you couldn't get elected dog catcher. Right. I thought it was funny how the due respect part didn't make it to the end of the sentence. And then I thought, well, in fairness to that reporter and that columnist, that really, honestly, I probably couldn't get elected dog catcher. I'd be a terrible dog catcher. I would adopt all the dogs. I would never turn one in if there was the vaguest chance it could be euthanized. I would never run for dog catcher. But I was really sure I'd be a damn fine MP, and I knew I could do it. Paul comes by this honestly. By God, Jim, Manley, Eva, these are great people. They are parliamentarians. Jim's been a parliamentarian. He understands democracy. Paul grew up in an activist family. So did I. That's something else we have in common. When I was little, and I'd play with my play phone, it was around 2, I'd pick up the phone and say, I have a petition. My mother was always calling people with her petition. And I thought that's what you did on phone. She picked up and said, I have a petition. And went around to the playground warning other children about strontium-90 and nuclear radiation. And other parents were warning their kids not to eat the snow, but only if it was yellow. I was worried about strontium-90 in the snow, the deposition of atmospheric nuclear fallout, since I was in kindergarten. It's no wonder I'm the way I am. But that's the same way. that has raised him to understand that we can change the world, that we do change the world, that every one of us has power, and that every one of us as a citizen has an obligation and a responsibility to make the world a better place for our own kids. We don't sit back, we don't wait for somebody else to do it. We roll up our sleeves and we believe in the possibilities of hope, and we understand that our dreams can be made reality when we work to make them happen, and we do it out of love. I know that in 2011 we kept telling people, if you vote green in Saanich Gulf Islands, you can make history. We said it, we knew it. You know how I got elected in Saanich Gulf Islands? It's a big secret, but I think I better tell you. I got a lot more votes than the other guy. And in order to get those votes, we went door to door more than any other campaign and any other party. Just knocked on doors. And we answered questions. Someone knocks on your door. Oh, by the way, there's another nominated candidate here in this room. I should have introduced Glenn Solid. You want to stand up because you're going to be the next member of Parliament for Courtney, Alberta. We knocked on a lot of doors and we told people there was something they could believe in, something they could dream about. And we kept being told, oh, you Greens shouldn't even be running because you're going to split the vote. It's a funny question. Andrew Weaver kept getting it. The night Andrew Weaver was elected in Oak Bay, Gordon Head, he stood up and said, we didn't split the vote in Oak Bay, Gordon Head. We are the vote in Oak Bay, Gordon Head. So that's it, you see. We are the vote on Vancouver Island. Paul's right. We're going to gather that vote. We're going to gather the people who've been disillusioned and stopped voting. Saanich Gulf Islands in 2011, this is something you may not know, we had the highest voter turnout in Canada, 75%. Gordon Head, when Andrew Weaver was elected, highest voter turnout in British Columbia. We keep making history. We just keep making history. Doubled the caucus when Bruce Heyer, who was sitting as an independent, speaking of which, you can sit down, Bruce, sometimes he'll tell you what it's like to be whipped. He's very happy to be in the Green Party because we don't have whip votes. Bruce Heyer doubled the caucus in December of last year. And then in September of 2014, we made history again when the leader of the Green Party of New Brunswick defeated the Conservative Energy Minister of New Brunswick on the issue of fracking. So, making history is fun, but I think it's time to move on. Since 2011, we've had the horror, I think the word that Paul used was the democratic ruin. I've watched what Stephen Harper's done in the House with his false majority. I've watched what is essentially a process of serial vandalism. It's not changing laws, it's destroying laws. I know he told Canadians he was going to run on a tough-on-crime budget, but he never, and tough-on-crime agenda. He never told Canadians he planned to be tough on nature. He's a tough-on-nature kind of guy. Doesn't really want to give the trees or the fish. I mean, I swear, I can't get over, I knew it was going to be bad. But it's been so devastating. The laws I worked on as an environmental lawyer, some of them I helped get passed when I worked in government in the 80s. It wasn't enough to go back and destroy the environmental legacy of that eco-freak Brian Mulroney. Stephen Harper had to go back and destroy laws passed by Sir John A. Macdonald. That's how long we've had the Navigable Waters Protection Act, since the beginnings of this country. We've got a real job to do after this election when Paul joins me in Parliament. We've got to fix everything Harper broke. Yeah. We're going to have to fix everything he broke. He passed a series of laws to demonize the trade union movement and collective bargaining. He's passed a series of laws to make it harder for people to vote. He's passed a series of laws to get rid of, dangerous things like collecting statistics, like getting rid of the long-form census, a fundamental transformational set of horrible laws that changed our criminal justice system to one that wasn't about rehabilitation and reintegration of people who paid their debt to society, but about demonizing and mandatory minimum sentences and a whole slew of laws that don't stand up to Supreme Court of Canada's scrutiny because they violate the Charter. Like this new horrible law to deal with prostitution, which will not stand Charter scrutiny, or the new laws that he plans to bring forward on terrorism. We have to fix everything that got broken. And the fastest way that we can get rid of first past the post and get proportional representation, and the fastest way that we can get real climate action, we have to fix everything that's broken and put us back on the course to where we walk around the world with that Canadian flag on our backpacks. Again, I love that idea. I have the same thing happens to me. I go to international climate meetings, and it's horrible. You know, you're a proud Canadian, but as soon as you admit you're from Canada, people from around the world say, why do you people even bother to come? Why are you here? So this is my little dream, which I want to tell you about. There's going to be a green tidal wave over Vancouver Island, and it's going to carry a few more green seats from the lower mainland in different parts of Canada. I'm not going to tell you that Greens are going to be able to form government, surprise everybody, and take enough seats. But we are going to take enough seats that in a minority parliament, we're going to force parties that have ancestral crazy levels of hatred between other parties that should get along. We're going to have to get enough seats that in a minority parliament, because it will be a minority, we as Greens will go into parliament with the goal of working for you, fixing what's broken, and making things work again. And we will force people who don't want to cooperate and get along, guess what? They're going to kind of have to, because if Greens hold the balance of power in a minority parliament, that's what we're going to do, and that's what's going to happen. I was sitting in the negotiations in Lima, Peru at the climate meetings and thinking, oh God, what can change? Because this isn't going well. Canada's awful in the room, the worst country in the room, except for the steep competition now from Australia to be the worst country in the room, and stiff competition from Australia. And the US, goodness knows Barack Obama's a whole lot better than George Bush, but the US is still the US in these negotiations, and you have to keep wondering, when is someone going to step up and show leadership? There isn't a political leader of any of those countries in the room, and then I realized, wait a minute, it's going to be us. Because the election will happen before the next negotiation. We can go to the climate negotiations in Paris, and if you work hard enough and you knock on enough doors and you help Paul, so Paul helps me, and we go to Parliament with enough Green MPs and Glenn and people I can't tell you about yet, but I can tell you about Lynn Cornby, Simon Fraser University professor who was arrested on Burnaby Mountain. She'll be the next member of Parliament for burning North Timor. Make it work. And we're going to get climate action, and we're going to get rid of first past the post. That's my short list. We're going to fix what's broken. We're going to work well with others. So in 2011, the Green Party made history. In 2015, we're going to save Canada.